It's Thursday, the 11th of November, 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Morning, Michael.
5 stories, 5 minutes. Here we go. Story number 1. Confidence in the economic recovery is growing, Sean, with the vaccine rollout pushing both consumer and business sentiment higher, and retailers expecting a solid run into Christmas. Whichever way you look at it, this is good news.
Sure is. The Westpac Melbourne Institute Index of Consumer Confidence rose again this month, led by New South Wales, which of course reopened. The big jump was around the labour market. In fact, consumers expect the unemployment rate to fall further, and their outlook on the employment market is its best since the mid-1990s. That's critical because people with jobs or confident of getting a job spend money. If we shift to business conditions and confidence rose last month as well, encouraged by better trading conditions, profitability and employment. Again, New South Wales led the way. Confidence readings are now positive across all states and industries in business. And when business is confident, they invest in equipment and they hire more people. Consumer and business confidence are critical because they can become self-fulfilling prophecies, and that can supercharge the economy. The boss of Coles yesterday came out. He said that he was optimistic about Christmas trading, mostly because vaccination rates are so good. There's 82% of all adults are now fully vaccinated across the country, and 90% have had their first jab. All in all, a really good feel about the economy in the next few months.
Yeah, that is really good news. Okay, on to story number 2. And Sean, do you know what's missing from politicians these days?
I dare say colour.
A sense of showmanship, which is why it was so exciting to see former Prime Minister Paul Keating back in the headlines.
Yes, he's always entertaining, and no matter what you think of him, he is worth listening to because he has a very definite point of view and plenty of knowledge. The former Prime Minister yesterday told the National Press Club that Australia was at odds with its geography and the government needs to make peace with Beijing, calling on the government to be more respectful of China. The former Labor leader said the country had lost its way and Australia's position on China, quote, would make a cat laugh. He also said 8 Australian submarines against China in 20 years' time will be like throwing a handful of toothpicks at a mountain. Oh, I miss him.
I think we all do, just for the theatre.
Exactly.
That's story number 2. On to story number 3. Now, the tax office was before a parliamentary inquiry yesterday, and before you tune out, they were talking about money laundering. Should anybody be nervous here, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. Money laundering is a really critical issue. Now, the tax office said it was examining warnings about money laundering in Australia's property market. There's a bit of a quirk in the law here. Anti-money laundering laws don't cover real estate agents, among others, though obviously the ATO is now having a look at them. For many years, politicians of different stripes have pushed for real estate agents to be captured in anti-money laundering laws. It hasn't happened, but there's a big push on at the moment for it. Taxman's also worried about illegal Phoenix activity. That's where a company closes with lots of debts and reopens in another name. And it's also examining the Pandora Papers. That's last month's global leak of the undisclosed holdings of more than 330 politicians, including 35 current and former heads of state.
Yeah, interesting one, that one. Story number 4 this morning, Sean, is one that every single person in Australia should be listening to because it's a bit of a warning about our super funds.
That's right. Only 7% of the 1.1 million workers in poorly performing superannuation funds have shifted to a competitor since the Prudential Regulator released its ratings on super funds, and that was back in August. The Australian Prudential Regulation Authority provided a list of underperforming funds. Those funds had to send a letter or email to members to explain why they were doing poorly. But APRA says it hasn't actually triggered a rush for the exits. Moral of the story, read your emails, read the letters from your super fund because maybe you should shift.
Yeah, not opening that letter could end up costing you a fair bit of money by the sounds of it.
Absolutely.
All right, on to story number 5. And the French president has had a bit to say about nuclear power.
Yes, Emmanuel Macron said his nation will construct a series of nuclear power plants as the country seeks to be carbon neutral by 2050. Now, Mr. Macron has previously promised to reduce France's reliance on nuclear energy, and of course he faces an election next year. But yesterday he said nuclear was needed to guarantee supply with low emissions. Another country that's very reliant on nuclear is Japan. it too faces the same challenge. More than 10 years ago, the Fukushima nuclear disaster forced the government to downplay nuclear, but if it wants to hit its environmental targets, it needs to ramp up nuclear again. This is a really interesting debate, which we're going to have for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah, I reckon so. That's it, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Thursday, the 11th of November, 2021. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if you'd like a little bit more, you can find our longer podcast called Fear and Greed on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au, where you can also sign up for our free daily newsletter. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fear and Greed Business Headlines. Have a great day.